The morning sunlight streamed through the towering glass panels of Vanguard Dynamics headquarters, reflecting the fake brilliance of an empire once proud of its global reach and cultural diversity. But beneath that glittering facade, an ugly truth quietly ruled. Racial prejudice had never left this place. Amelia Brooks, the youngest and one of the most powerful black CEOs in the tech industry, stepped into the main lobby. No symbols of power, no showy entourage. Just a simple, elegant grey suit and a plain leather bag. Yet with every step she took, the eyes of the receptionists, security guards and visitors brushed past her coldly, suspiciously, and with disdain. At Vanguard Dynamics, skin color was still an invisible passport. White skin meant welcome. Someone like Amelia? Just an outsider. At the reception desk, a blonde woman with sharp, cold eyes, her name was Ashley Monroe, glanced Amelia up and down. Without asking her name or checking the appointment schedule, she coldly said, "Deliveries go around the back." The entire vast lobby seemed to freeze. Some employees buried their heads in their computer screens. Others snuck amused glances as if watching some sideshow. Amelia raised an eyebrow slightly, keeping her voice calm. "I have an appointment with Mr. Richard Evans at 9 a.m. Please check again." Ashley sneered, not even bothering to touch her computer. "You must be at the wrong company. We're not hiring today." Behind Amelia, the sound of two security guards' footsteps grew louder. Without asking, without explaining, they grabbed her arms and dragged her away like an intruder. At a distant corner of the lobby, Mark Reynolds, executive vice president, stood against the wall, arms folded, witnessing the entire scene. He recognized Amelia immediately, not just because her photo had once graced the cover of Forbes, but because she was the key figure in a merger deal that could save Vanguard from the brink of bankruptcy. But Mark did nothing. He smirked. No matter how talented, a person of color had no right to control Vanguard's fate. Amelia did not resist. She held her head high, her gaze sweeping across each face. No one dared to meet her eyes. They all looked down, avoiding her, complicit in this humiliation. At the door, a cold gust of wind slapped Amelia's face. She paused, adjusted her collar, and turned to look up at the towering glass skyscraper. A very slight smile appeared on her lips. Not the smile of weakness, but of someone who had already calculated the next moves on the chessboard. In her mind, old memories surged back. The times she had been doubted, underestimated, and rejected simply because of her skin color. She was used to it. But today, Vanguard Dynamics would pay, not just for this humiliation, but for the entire racist system they had been nurturing. Amelia pulled out her phone and typed a brief message. "Activate Plan B. Cancel all negotiations." No anger, you don't need to shout, because she understood. The most devastating retaliation wasn't arguments or lawsuits. It was letting them destroy themselves with their foolish prejudice. Inside the building, Ashley Monroe returned to her desk, folding her arms triumphantly. She thought she had just protected the company. She had no idea she had unwittingly signed Vanguard Dynamics' death sentence. Mark Reynolds strode toward the elevator, a quiet, gloating joy swelling inside him. He had been planning to overthrow Richard Evans for a long time. And today, thanks to Ashley Monroe's arrogant ignorance, the first shot had been fired. Not far away, Vanessa Lewis, one of the rare black middle managers at Vanguard, stood pressed against the mezzanine railing. She witnessed everything, her hand clenching so tightly that her knuckles turned white. Vanessa was all too familiar with suspicious glances and whispered gossip. But seeing a symbol like Amelia Brooks treated this way, right in the heart of power, was like a knife plunged straight into her pride. Vanessa wanted to scream and intervene, but she knew that even one word of protest would crush her career like straw under a boot. Amelia climbed into the waiting black sedan. Before closing the door, she glanced again at the gleaming steel logo, Vanguard Dynamics. She thought to herself, an empire built on prejudice and arrogance will eventually collapse under its weight. The car rolled forward slowly, carrying Amelia away from the scene of humiliation. But for her, this was only the beginning. Her hand clenched tight, her gaze cold, Amelia Brooks vowed Vanguard would fall, not out of hatred, but because the truth could never be buried. The car carrying Amelia sped through the bustling city streets, but inside the cabin, the atmosphere was heavy, as if on the verge of exploding. Laura, her trusted assistant, sat in the front seat, occasionally glancing at the rearview mirror, worried. She had recognized the storm building behind her boss's calm facade. Amelia pulled out her phone, swiftly scrolling through a flood of messages. After just a minute, she issued a command. Organize an emergency meeting with the strategy team. I want a full report on our cooperation status with Vanguard Dynamics within the next 30 minutes. Without hesitation, Laura immediately got to work. At Carter Innovations headquarters, the conference room on the 30th floor was packed. Every eye turned to Amelia as she walked in. Without wasting words, Amelia projected a spreadsheet onto the large screen, a list of partnership contracts between Carter Innovations and Vanguard Dynamics, all in the final stages of negotiation. Estimated total value, over $450 million. Then a cold red line slashed across each name. Cancel everything, Amelia said, her voice sharp as a blade. A heavy silence filled the room. Some senior directors hesitated. One finally dared to speak up. Amelia, if I may ask, isn't this decision a bit emotional? Vanguard's financial situation is unstable. If we pull out, they'll go bankrupt, and we'll lose the investment we've already committed. Amelia looked up, her cold gaze slicing through the speaker. Do you think I'm here to hand out charity to those who scorn human dignity? The room held its breath. A company that tolerates racism does not deserve to be our partner, no matter how large the contract. This is not a financial decision. This is a declaration of Carter Innovations' values. Her words fell like a hammer sealing a fate. The entire leadership team fell silent, then nodded one by one. They understood. Today was not just a business day. Today was the day they chose a side. Less than 24 hours later, a brief headline flashed across financial news boards. Carter Innovations officially withdraws from all partnerships with Vanguard Dynamics. The financial world was stunned. Vanguard's investors panicked and began selling off their shares en masse, and the stock price plummeted uncontrollably. News exploded across social media. An anonymous account posted a video of Amelia Brooks humiliated in Vanguard Dynamics lobby. Within hours, the hashtag #boycott Vanguard became a global trend. In the CEO's office at Vanguard Dynamics, Richard Evans slammed his hand on the desk after reading the urgent report. Who's responsible for this? Who? Mark Reynolds stood silently in the corner, a cold gleam in his eye. He didn't bother speaking. For him, Richard's downfall was the bridge to his rise to power. Ashley Monroe, meanwhile, had gone pale, cowering behind the reception desk, her heart pounding. She was no longer the smug figure from the day before. Now she realized that insulting the delivery girl had exploded like a catastrophic bomb. Richard shouted, "Find that woman, apologize, invite her back, restore negotiations, do whatever it takes." But it was already too late. Amelia Brooks had no interest in hollow apologies. She was operating at a higher level, where the responses weren't delivered in words, but by dismantling entire empires. At Carter Innovations, Amelia ordered the establishment of a special task force dedicated to reviewing and collecting all documents and evidence related to Vanguard Dynamics' racist practices. They found far more than Amelia had anticipated. Internal emails discriminating against candidates based on skin color, employee evaluation sheets showing blatant bias, recorded meetings containing outright racist remarks, a massive trove of data, ticking time bombs just waiting to explode. Amelia gave the command: hand all the files over to the lawyers, prepare the communications plan. Vanguard Dynamics won't just collapse financially, they will collapse morally. Her eyes were as cold as steel. Outside, the storm of public opinion was gathering strength. Human rights organizations, business associations, and the media began to speak out. Pressure mounted on Vanguard Dynamics from every side. Chaos erupted inside the company. Major investors, banks, and international partners announced one after another that they were severing ties. Vanguard Dynamics, once hailed as a tech unicorn, was sinking faster than anyone had imagined. And Amelia Brooks, the woman once driven from their icy lobby, now sat calmly in her office, signing documents that would seal Vanguard's fate, black ink on white paper. Sometimes, Amelia thought, the greatest enemy of an empire isn't an external rival, it's the rotten prejudice festering within. And she knew this was only the beginning of a just purge, a silent but relentless revolution. Vanguard Dynamics was like a giant ship struck by a torpedo. Outwardly, it still tried to maintain its grandeur, but inside the cracks were spreading beyond repair. The news of Carter Innovations' withdrawal wiped out over 35% of Vanguard's market value in just 2 days. Shareholders panicked, and a flood of emails from major investors poured into management, demanding explanations and accountability. Richard Evans struggled through endless calls, from banks, partners, media, and regulators, with the same cold tone: sever ties, liquidate assets, demand compensation. But that was only the tip of the iceberg. On the third day after Carter Innovations' bombshell, Times Financial published a shocking investigative report: Vanguard Dynamics, a racist paradise disguised under the glare of technology. The article cited many internal emails, recorded secret meetings, and blatantly discriminatory hiring policies. One recording captured the cold voice of Mark Reynolds: "People of color are not suited to our high-speed corporate culture. They should stick to logistics work." The audio cut through whatever fragile trust remained. At the same time, at Carter Innovations headquarters, Amelia Brooks led a strategy meeting. Accelerate the media campaign. We will not let them bury the truth. They must face it, hour by hour, minute by minute. Journalists, social media, and human rights activists attacked Vanguard Dynamics like relentless tsunamis. The #sign Dismantle Vanguard soared straight to global #1. Celebrities, high-profile CEOs, and significant financial organizations posted declarations cutting ties with Vanguard. Each statement was another nail in Vanguard's coffin. At Vanguard Dynamics, the internal structure collapsed. Departments turned on each other. Minority employees resigned en masse and filed class action lawsuits. The company's legal office was buried in court summonses. Richard Evans gasped for air like a drowning man. He scrambled to organize an emergency meeting to salvage what he could. "We need an official apology statement urgently, a PR campaign to repair our image, a compensation plan for the victims." But everything was already too late. The fury had spread like wildfire. No one believed the apologies from an empire rotten to its very core. Right in the middle of the meeting, a board member coldly placed a thick file on the table. "Richard, Mark, both of you must leave. Immediately, all eyes turned to Richard and Mark, their careers officially ended under the silent but icy contempt of the entire board. 7 days after the Carter Innovations incident, Vanguard Dynamics officially declared bankruptcy. The announcement was broadcast globally. The entire tech industry was shaken. An empire once valued at tens of billions of dollars had collapsed, all because of a foolish act of racism in a lobby. Ashley Monroe, the one who had directly pushed Vanguard into the abyss, was now unemployed, publicly shamed across the media. Every career door slammed shut in her face. With his scheming ways, Mark Reynolds was prosecuted for corporate espionage and financial fraud. On the day of his trial, he bowed his head silently before a merciless verdict. Once a powerful CEO, Richard Evans lived in secluded exile in a remote rural town, remembered by history as a symbol of moral failure in business. And Amelia Brooks? She didn't need to say another word. She held her head high, calmly moving forward, leaving behind the wreckage caused by prejudice and arrogance. Justice doesn't always need a scream. Sometimes it only needs a cold gaze and a heart that refuses to bow. Amelia knew that the real battle had only just begun. After Vanguard Dynamics collapsed, Amelia Brooks did not rest. She did not allow herself the comfort of temporary victory. Deep inside, Amelia understood very clearly. Retaliation was only the first step. Rebuilding, from the ashes, for a fairer new generation, was the real war. Just a few weeks after Vanguard's bankruptcy news shook the globe, another headline rocked the tech world. Carter Innovations announced the acquisition of Vanguard Dynamics' former headquarters complex. The media was stunned. Analysts were baffled. Why would Amelia decide to take over those ruined remains? The answer came when Amelia officially held a press conference at the newly acquired site. Under the dazzling morning sun, Amelia appeared in a pristine white suit, her eyes blazing with determination. We do not build the future by running from the past. We must face it, transform it, and create something better from the very place that once caused harm. She announced the founding of the Carter Center for Innovation and Equality, a center not only focused on cutting-edge technologies like AI, blockchain, and cybersecurity, but one destined to become a symbol of racial justice, cultural diversity, and human rights within corporate environments. Every detail had been meticulously planned by Amelia. Open office designs, eliminating hierarchical divisions. Transparent hiring policies, actively prioritizing minority communities. Full scholarships for students of African, Asian, Latinx, Indigenous, and other disadvantaged backgrounds. Leadership training programs focused on equity and humane corporate cultures. Even the building was redesigned. All areas of covert segregation, like the VIP guest zones, a symbol of class discrimination, were eliminated. The center would become a promised land for talents once rejected, for dreams once crushed. As news of the Carter Center for Innovation and Equality spread, the community erupted excitedly. Universities rushed to sign partnership agreements. Investment funds are poured in massively. Thousands of applications are needed to join the flood daily. On social media, people who had once been wounded by workplace racism shared their stories, tagging them with number new beginning at Carter Center. A new wave had truly risen. This was no longer just about retaliation. It was about rebuilding. And Amelia led this revolution. Vanessa Lewis, who had once been the lone minority manager suffocated at Vanguard, was now personally invited by Amelia to become the center's executive director. At the appointment ceremony, Amelia spoke before hundreds of guests and journalists. We are not just giving opportunities to those who deserve them. We are empowering them to shape the future. Vanessa was so moved that she could hardly speak. She knew that day was not just a personal milestone. It was recognition for millions who had been dismissed simply because of the color of their skin. The rebuilding process was anything but easy. Many doubted. Some newspapers launched subtle attacks, claiming that Amelia was using equity to polish her image. Amelia didn't react. She let actions speak. In 18 months, the Carter Center for Innovation and Equality birthed 2 new unicorn startups, 4 technology platforms partnered with the US government, and over 30 community initiatives awarded international prizes. News outlets now call the Carter Center a symbol of renewal. Other CEOs who had once mocked Amelia behind closed doors now lined up to learn from her model. One autumn afternoon, Amelia stood atop the center's rooftop, looking down at the bustling crowd below. Beside her stood Vanessa Lewis, now a confident, capable leader. "The day I was thrown out of Vanguard's lobby," Amelia said quietly, her voice steady, "I swore that if I could one day stand atop those ruins, I would turn them into a garden for the next generation." Vanessa smiled. "And you did, Amelia. Not just a garden, but an entire forest." The autumn wind carried the scent of new beginnings. Amelia closed her eyes momentarily, savoring a rare moment of peace. Not because she had finished taking revenge, not because she had won, but because she had restored faith in a fairer world. A world where a black woman in an elegant grey suit could walk into any building and be greeted with the respect she deserved. And Amelia knew she was just getting started. The Carter Center for Innovation and Equality didn't stop at its early achievements. Under Amelia Brooks' leadership, it rapidly expanded beyond US borders. Amelia organized a series of global forums on racial equality in technology, attracting the brightest minds worldwide. Her candid and combative speeches shook auditoriums from San Francisco to Geneva, from Tokyo to Cape Town. Equality is not a vague promise. It must be written into every line of code, every employment contract, every business decision. That message became the new rallying cry for an entire generation of entrepreneurs. 1 year later, the Carter Center opened branches across Africa, the Middle East, and South America. In every location, the center didn't just bring technology, it brought opportunity, scholarships, leadership training programs, and startup incubators for minority communities. In Nigeria, the Carter Center's Tech for Change program funded 500 underprivileged students to study information technology with guaranteed job offers upon graduation. In Brazil, the Carter Center's São Paulo incubator helped hundreds of indigenous community startups access international investment for the first time. Amelia signed agreements with Southeast Asian governments to build a sustainable innovation ecosystem focused on diversity and gender equality. The resounding success of the Carter Center quickly sent shockwaves through global corporate giants. Facing immense social pressure, many companies were forced to review all their internal policies and implement sweeping reforms to avoid becoming the next Vanguard. Numerous corporate leaders sought the Carter Center for advice on diversity strategies and creating humane corporate cultures. Amelia, always courteous in her reception, never forgot to remind them gently, "Don't come here just to clean up your image. Come here if you truly want to change." But success did not only bring glory, it also attracted covert attacks. Conservative forces and old interest groups began attacking the Carter Center using every tactic, spreading fake news, filing baseless lawsuits, and bribing the media to smear its reputation. Amelia knew she was walking the most challenging path, but she remained undaunted. Every attack only made her stronger. In an interview, when asked if she ever felt exhausted, Amelia smiled. "If I find it easy one day, maybe I've chosen the wrong mission." That answer quickly became an inspirational quote shared widely across young entrepreneur forums. A significant turning point came when the Carter Center partnered with the United Nations to organize the Technology for Human Rights Summit. Amelia was the keynote speaker. Before thousands of delegates from around the world, she declared, "We once believed technology would be a tool for human liberation. But if it is built on foundations of bias and prejudice, it only strengthens injustice. It's time to tear down the old foundations and build new values." Her speech ended with thunderous applause that lasted for minutes. That day, the Carter Center signed a series of global partnership agreements, officially stepping into an unprecedented era of influence. Under the soft yellow lights of her office, Amelia sat alone, reading hundreds of handwritten letters sent from around the world. Young people thanked her for giving them hope. Minority workers who dared to stand up for their rights for the first time, and single mothers thanked her for paving a better path for their children. Every word and story was like a small flame, warming her heart amid endless battles. Amelia understood she was no longer fighting just for herself. She was fighting for a world where future generations would never have to endure what she had suffered. And that was the greatest reward. After nearly a decade of relentless effort, the Carter Center for Innovation and Equality had risen to become a global symbol in both technology and human rights and social justice. Under Amelia Brooks' uncompromising leadership, the center had created over 100,000 high-quality jobs for minorities, supported the establishment of 2,000 startups led by marginalized groups, helped pass 3 national laws on equal opportunity in the US, Europe, and the African tech industry. Amelia was no longer just a CEO. She had become a historical icon. At a grand ceremony at the United Nations, Amelia Brooks was awarded the Beacon of Justice Award, which honors individuals who have changed the course of history toward a fairer world. Stepping onto the podium in a simple black dress, the spotlight casting a dignified yet humble aura around her, Amelia did not deliver a long speech. She said, "I accept this honor not for myself, but for all those who have been belittled, sidelined, yet chose to stand and fight. We are the generation that builds bridges, not walls." The entire hall rose to its feet, thundering applause echoing without end. Some wiped away tears. But within Amelia, an important decision had fully ripened. After the awards night, she called a private meeting with the Carter Center leadership team. In a softly lit room, she spoke slowly. "It's time for me to resign from my executive position." The room fell silent. Vanessa Lewis, now vice president of the Carter Center, widened her eyes in disbelief. "Amelia, no way, we need you." Amelia smiled, her voice calm but firm. "You have all become so strong that I can step away. I didn't create the Carter Center for it to depend on one person. I built it to last longer than any individual." She announced the transfer of leadership to a multi-ethnic council composed of the brightest young leaders. Amelia would return to an advisory role, preserving the center's original spirit. On the day Amelia officially stepped down, thousands of Carter Center employees lined up outside, holding candles, their eyes glistening with tears. Amelia strolled through the sea of people amid the relentless but silent applause. There were only gentle hugs, grateful gazes, and whispered goodbyes. A young employee, representing the new generation, handed her a gift. A painting of a bridge spanning a deep ravine with a small inscription, "You built the bridge." Amelia hugged the painting to her chest, bowed in thanks, and then left the center. Like an architect who had completed the most outstanding work of her life, Amelia Brooks lived simply in a small house by the Maine coast in the following years. Every morning she walked along the beach with her old dog Rusty, wrote books, and occasionally lectured on leadership for justice at universities. She rarely appeared in public, but every time the Carter Center launched a new project, every time a minority entrepreneur achieved a milestone, every time a young African descendant student received their first tech scholarship, people would whisper her name, not as a celebrity, but as an ever-burning flame that never went out. One day, at an international conference in New York, a new statue was unveiled in front of the United Nations headquarters. A long-reaching bridge carved with the immortal words, "We are the generation that builds bridges, not walls." At the base of the statue, thousands of small notes were left, promises, dreams, and commitments to continue the journey she had started. Standing quietly in the crowd, wearing a wide-brimmed hat, Amelia smiled softly. She needed no praise. It was enough to know that the world had changed, gradually, person by person. From a humiliation that once seemed meaningless, a woman of color had written a new chapter for humanity. And that was the most significant victory of all.